Okay. Hello, everybody. This is your rudimental music theory friend Ethan here, and today we're going to be going over what is a major scale. We'll also go over how it's used in music and how we can detect and create them. Now, you may think, why don't we just jump straight into explaining exactly what makes up a major scale? But we must obviously cover prerequisite stuff such as notes, tones, semitones, sharps and flats, and harmonic equivalences, diatomic and chromatic half steps, and intervals, because unfortunately those are all important aspects of what makes a major scale. In Western music, music is composed of 12 notes, otherwise known as semitones. We also have names given to each of these notes or tones. The best way to learn the names of the notes is to look at the piano. That's from my experience. Some people might have better ways of learning it. But on this PowerPoint, here is a piano or keyboard, whatever you may call it, and the names of the notes are labeled for you. So for the white keys, the names go from A to G, ascending from left to right. You go from A to G, and then you go back to A. The black keys are our accidental tones that use flats and sharps. Accidental notes are pitches that are raised up or down a half step or a semitone. Flats lower pitches by a semitone, and sharps raise pitches by a semitone. Since as we go on the piano from left to right, the pitch of a tone gets higher, that's why flats of notes tend to be on the left and sharps tend to be on the right. For the example, if you take A and you raise it a semitone, that's why it's called A sharp. The rightmost key of A is A sharp, and if you lower it by a half step or a semitone, you would give it a flat, and it would be called A flat. That's why the leftmost key of A is A flat. Now, you might be realizing that there's multiple names for the black keys, and that is something called enharmonic equivalences. Though that's in the situation where there are different names of the same pitch. So the key C, although is represented as C here, it can also mean B sharp or D double flat. So keys have the same pitch but different names, and harmonic equivalences. You get it. You understand. It's fine. I believe in you. Diatomic and chromatic half steps. So, whenever we use major scales and scales in general, we make sure that each note we use is of a different letter name, also known as diatomic half steps. That is one of the reasons why we have enharmonic equivalences, because scales will always start on different notes, and because we need the the tones of each degree in the scale to be a different letter name, we have to confine by using the enharmonic equivalences. Um, and then chromatic half steps are when we keep the letter name the same but change the quality by using flats and sharps or naturals. Um, the last thing we have to go over is intervals. When we make music, we like to measure the distance between notes and give them different names and qualities due to the overall sound that they end up making. And pertinent to major scales, we have minor seconds and major seconds. To measure an interval, you always start with the note the ground note or the first note, and you move to the left or to the right on the piano, for example, how many semitones you want for the interval. So for a minor second, that would be an interval of one half step. So you would go, if we take A and we want to make a minor second out of it, we would move one to the right, which would end up on A sharp or B flat. That would be a minor second. Whole steps or major seconds is when you do two for the interval, and it goes from A, you would skip A sharp and you would go straight to B. That would be a major second because there are two semitones or a whole step in a major second. When we deal with major scales, there are a pattern of whole and half steps that you have to confine by, in order to get the major scale that you need. All right, now that we have covered the essential information, we can go over exactly what a major scale is. There are a lot of different types of scales in general that we use in music, and the definition of a scale is just a set order of musical pitches that are ascending or descending. Now, when we use major scales, the only difference between a major scale and any other scale is the pattern used to create it. There are seven ordered notes in a major scale that are either ascending or descending in the pattern whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And what that means is in between each note, the interval will be a whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, just like we talked about in the last slide. So if we use the example scale here that I have on the PowerPoint for G major, the interval between G and A, the first note, and the second note is a whole step because the pattern for a major scale, the first interval has to be a whole step interval. Now, for minor scales and other types of scales, there's different patterns, but since we're dealing with just major scales, this is the pattern you have to memorize, you have to understand, and yeah, I just like with diatonic, chromatic, all the other stuff, it's pretty easy to understand once you get the hang of it. Um, Last thing is that there are 12 semitones, so obviously there's going to be 12 major scales. Each one has a different starting tone or tonic, and you always use the pattern to find the rest of the scale degree numbers. Um, and yeah, so when we ask what the whole purpose of scales are, such as major scales, it might not seem so obvious, but there is a good reason. When we have music, and especially Western music, we usually confine our music to a scale so that we have a sort of framework that the music revolves around. Now, we could have it that there are no keys and music is just written with sharps and flats put in it when necessary. But with the way we write music with key signatures, which is something that I'll go in a second, it allows the music to be more formatted and allows musicians to more easily read music. When they see that the music's in a particular scale, it also gives composers the choice to have a different tonal fingerprint because each major scale is going to essentially sound different from each other, and some might be more pleasing to the ears than others in certain situations. Um, so with the key signature, something that I completely forgot to go over is that with our 12 scales, our major scales, the easiest way for a musician to understand what they're reading is that we use key signatures. And basically, right by the treble clef on this G major piano scale, you can see the G major key signature, which is a F sharp. Basically, what that tells the musician is that everything being played, the only accidental in that entire piece will be the F becoming a sharp. And that's just how it is for every key signature. You don't have to memorize the names of them, it's just it tells you which ones will be flats and which ones will be sharps. And that's about it. Hopefully, you learned something in this 10 minutes of music major scales. Bye.